Hi everyone, and welcome to the first episode of 15-Minute Fridays. And I am thrilled today to be joined by the author of The End of Cuthbert Close, Cassie Hamer, who I'm going to bring onto the screen now. Hi Cassie, thank you for joining me today.
Hello, I love the fancy intro, credits and music and moving books, and I love the description of you as a virtual author. You're a real author.
I know. When I was coming up with that, I wasn't quite sure how to frame it because this is the virtual side of me. But yeah, hopefully I'm a real author. I did have some technical help from a 14-year-old who lives in my house with the technology there. So
thank God for 14-year-olds. I'm glad they're useful for something.
That's right. That's right. So before we get started, Cassie, I'm going to announce that we are doing a giveaway as part of today's chat. Otherwise, I will forget to do it entirely. So Cassie and I are giving away a copy of Cassie's B format of After the Party, my B format of The Cottage at Rosella Cove, and some chockies to go with it. So anyone that makes a comment or asks a question, whether that's during the live stream now or if you're watching it back later, we'll leave the giveaway open till midnight Saturday night. You'll go in the draw to win this lovely pack. So welcome to 15-Minute Fridays, Cassie. And I was wanting to ask how you've been coping with isolation. And your book, your latest book, The End of Cuthbert Close, came out the week after my Banksia Bay Beach Shack came out. And that was right when everything was shutting down. So how's it been for you, darling?
Oh, shocking. No, you know what? I think you and I had the worst timing possible, like literally bookshops shut in the days after our books came out. So it's definitely been a challenge, but in the grand scheme of life, it's not the end of the world. So isolation has been interesting. So this week, I'm usually a bottle blonde, and so I haven't been able to get to the hairdresser, and I've just been dying to get to the hairdresser because I got my hair coloured in October last year. So it's been months and months and months. And I was thinking, okay, great, this is the time. Then on Monday, I started feeling a bit itchy in the back of my head. And I thought, oh, that's a little bit strange, but maybe just, dry skin, weather's getting dry, et cetera, et cetera. Then on Tuesday, I got really quite itchy. And I said to my husband, oh, can you just check my hair? Because my kids have had nits on and off for ages. So he started looking through my hair, and sure enough, the little bastards are in my hair. I could have killed my kids. Kids are the worst, honestly. They bring home all sorts of things. So I've got nits, and I have been treated. So hopefully I'm nit-free now. But then I don't know what happened. I did the nit treatment and then thought to myself, I just want to cut my hair off. I just want to get rid of it all because I can't now go to the hairdresser. So I did this fancy thing that I'd seen on YouTube, and I took about 2 or 3 inches off my hair, and now I have these really random short bits and like long bits in the wrong spot. So I'm having a bad hair week. This is like in isolation, home haircut.
This is the glamorous life of an author, right?
Yeah, exactly. So sorry, nothing to do with writing. The writing bit is okay, and the book stuff I've just come to grips with. I'm just it's one day at a time, and at the moment it's the nits and the hair sort of giving me more grief. What about you?
Yeah, well, my daughter's of an age where they don't tend to get the nits anymore. So
when is this magic age? Holy moly.
Yeah, probably about 12-ish.
I can't wait.
So that's been all right. Yeah, we've coped okay with isolation. They're back at school this week, obviously, and we'll see how that goes. So Kathy Jury's just put up a comment here, which I think will segue beautifully into what we're supposed to be talking about today. That the timing of the release of both of our books was great because she bought them both to read during isolation. So have you been doing much reading during isolation, Cassie? Sorry.
Well, yeah, I often get called Kathy, and thank you, Kathy, for saying that about book reading. I think you're right. I mean, theoretically, we all have much more time on our hands. What I've found though is that I'm feeling extremely tired at night and my brain is quite dead. And I found that I can only read specific books, books
Right.
that just to sort of, I don't know, they have to have really great character and really good plot, and there has to be stuff happening, and I have to be able to follow it. So,
Right.
so do you want me to show you one of the
Yeah.
ones so I've had a few hits and misses lately. I'm not going to talk about the misses, but I want to talk about the ones that really have struck a chord with me because, yeah, there've been a couple where I've just gotten 50 pages in and thought, I can't remember what happened 5 seconds ago, so I'm just not going to persist. Anyway, one that was really fabulous was this one, which is Lisa Island's. Oh, you've got it too, twinning.
It's
The
on my
Secret
to be
Life
read
of
pile.
Shirley. Oh, is it? Okay. Well, you're in for a treat. So the story of this one is that Shirley Sullivan is a woman of an older age. She's living in Sydney with her daughter. Her husband, Frank, who's I think 83, is in a nursing home. He's in the Sunset Lodge nursing home and he's suffering from dementia. She does not approve of the way in which he's being looked after. It's a pretty depressing situation. So Shirley takes it upon herself to break Frank out of the Sunset Lodge, and her plan is to take him back to Victoria, to where they met, which was on a beach called Bankura Beach. I'm not from Victoria, but I think this is a real place, but it's sort of around Geelong. And so they go on a road trip, but they're essentially on the run because Frank and Shirley's daughter, Fiona, is desperately worried about them and she gets the police involved. But Shirley has made very detailed plans as to how to evade the authorities. But then the second part of this is this big secret that Shirley has been carrying around. I'm obviously not going to say what it is here, but it is quite the secret, and it does pose quite a moral dilemma as to whether she says something to her daughter and to Frank or whether she keeps it a secret. But I just love Lisa's storytelling. It's told all from Shirley's point of view, but the contemporary bits are in first person. So we're right in Shirley's head for the sort of road trip side of it. And then the bits from the sort of 1960s onwards about Shirley and Frank meeting is told in third person, which just gives you a bit more distance and a bit more perspective on the era. And Shirley's grown up in a very conservative household. She's raised a Catholic. She's really quite innocent and naive when she grows into the marriage, but against the background of the swinging 60s, she obviously really blossoms as a human being. But there's just such warmth and heart in this book. And I know that the phrase, easy read, can cause some authors to. It's something that said a lot about my books, but I never take it as a criticism. I think books should be a pleasure and a joy, and they should be easy to read, and it should be easy to turn the page. And that's exactly what that book is.
Yeah, excellent. It is on the top of my list. It's on a few other people's lists here. And as Debbie pointed out, it's Lisa's birthday today. So happy birthday, Lisa Island.
Happy birthday.
Wishing you the best. It's kind of good that we're talking about her book today. One thing that I've noticed becoming more and more prevalent in literature, and particularly commercial literature like ours, is having a protagonist that is over a certain age. Joanna Nell does it beautifully. Lisa Island's done it here. And I think that's really special. And one of the books that I've read during isolation has that element in it as well. And that is The Switch by Beth O'Leary.
I want to read that. I love The Flat Share.
Yeah, so this is her second one, her follow-up from that. And it's essentially a story of Eileen, who's in her 80s, and her granddaughter Lena, who's in her, I think it's late 20s, early 30s. And both of them having some issues in their life, and they decide to swap places. So Eileen leaves the tiny country English village that she lives in and moves to London, and Lena moves out of London into the tiny village. And there's a lot of joy and happiness, and there's tragedy in it as well, but it's one of those books that's really uplifting. But when we're talking about these older protagonists, and Eileen in this book, I want to be Eileen when I grow up. Like, she is just...
Why?
She's gorgeous, she's funny, she's sassy, she leaves like just happiness in her wake, and she changes the lives of the people around her. And she's just and she's got to that point in her life, which I think we all get to eventually, where she just doesn't care anymore. And she's going to say it like it is, but still with heart. She's not mean about it. And I just think that's lovely. So I've noticed this trend, and I've got older characters in my books as well. What do you think it is about the older characters that appeals to readers?
I think it's that. I think it's a couple of things. I think it's what you say about that something about going through menopause and coming out the other side means that women have a lot less shits to give about everything in general, and that makes them really interesting as characters. If you have someone who's really quite forthright, and there are some indignities about aging which can, if put into the right author's hands, can also be quite humorous. I mean, there's a lot of darkness to getting older, but in the right hands, it can be quite sort of funny in the way that parenting a young child, for instance, can be so awful that it's quite amusing. But I think the other part of it is that when you look at who buys books, it's mainly older women. And so from a business perspective, it's really savvy. There's a huge market of readers who want to see their own lives reflected on the page. And the fact is that the sort of 40 plus reading market is very much dominated by women. And why should women who are older readers, and why shouldn't we see our lives reflected to us on the page? I don't know. That's my theory. Do you have one?
Yeah, and I think once they hit that part where they've got that freedom, like, Shirley busting out a husband from a nursing home, like, you wouldn't think of doing that now, in our current stage of life. I think that adds such a depth to the characters and such interest to them. And like I've said, and Jodie Gibson put the comment up as well, that she wants to be Eileen as well. And I think it's almost that aspirational reading. Like, I want to be at that place in my life where I can do and say the things that these girls are doing and saying. Yes. Yeah,
it gives you a chance to look forward with hope, I suppose, to what lies ahead. True. There is so much doom and gloom around aging, but it can't be all bad, because you've got all that wisdom and that fact that you don't care as much about what people think about you and the things that you can say and do, and you're not restricted so much by kids and work and all those sorts of things. So yeah.
And I believe the other story you've read is a slightly different genre than Lisa Islands.
Yes, so different. And this one I actually listened to as an audiobook, so I don't have the physical thing to show you. It's called Shearwater, and it's by an Australian author, Leah Swan. She has written some other books, I think, for children, but this is her first adult fiction novel. Now, I'll tell you, what happens in the first chapter is that we meet a mother, Ava. She's in her car with her two kids, Max and Teddy, in the back. They're going to Shearwater, which is a fictional town on the Shipwreck Coast, I think it's called, in Victoria. Anyway, they're on this road trip when suddenly they see a light plane fall out of the sky and crash into a field. And Ava, being a former first responder and sort of paramedic, feels she has to go and render assistance, which she does, leaving the kids in the car. But when she comes back, the two boys are gone. So that's the opening page. So it's a really wonderful premise. What entails is essentially a story of Ava having escaped a really toxic relationship. What I loved about this book is that it's beautifully written. It straddles that wonderful double genre thing of being both literary but also a real page turner. The writing is wonderful, the characterization's great. The ending is very traumatic, but it's real. This is what actually does happen. So I had no problem with it, but you are going to need to bring the tissues for sure.
I've heard that a lot. I've seen that a lot on comments on Facebook and Goodreads, that, it's a bit gut-wrenching.
Highly recommend. Yeah. Matt, what's the other one, though, that you've been reading lately?
I've gone in a completely different direction to that. I'm sticking with the joyous, happy reads, probably partly because of the mental state of being in isolation and having a daughter that's at higher risk. It's been quite a stressful time for us, so I haven't had the brain capacity to deal with anything too heavy. So the other book that I've read recently is a debut novel, and it's by Rachel Givney, and it's called Jane in Love. Ooh. And I'm a sucker for anything to do with Jane Austen. So this one, I think Penguin actually gave this to me. She's a Penguin author. And I really enjoyed it. So the basic premise is that Jane Austen, before she's published, is in that moment where she's trying to get her work recognised, but she's also trying to fulfil the social expectations of the time and find a husband. And she's not having much luck with either of those two things. And she ends up finding I'm going to call her a witch, I don't know what the correct terminology is, in London, to help her find her true love, to cast a spell to help her find her true love. And the old lady casts the spell and actually transports Jane into the present day, because that's where her one true love actually exists. So there's lots of funny observations about the modern time, from Jane's perspective, why we're all ruled by this tiny little rectangle that we keep in our hands. Lots of comedy moments like that. But it also deals with, what does she do? So when she meets the love of her life, even though she doesn't realise it at first, of course, it's a Jane Austen novel. But what happens is, because she was transported before she became an author in her own time, her books start disappearing off the shelves in the modern time. So she's disappearing from history.
So does she know that she's come forward in time, that she's been through some magical time travel thing?
Yes.
Right, so she's aware of that. Is she still wearing the dresses?
When she arrives here, she is.
Wow.
But she gets taken in by an actress and wears modern clothes from then on in. But the dilemma of the story is, does she stay in the modern time with her one true love, or does she go back to become the famous Jane Austen that history says she is? And she has to make that decision. And I might actually throw this to everybody in the comments, and I'm also going to throw it to you, Cassie. If that was you, if you were Jane, what would you choose? Would you choose to stay in the present with your one true love, or would you go back and forego love to become Jane Austen?
That's impossible.
I know. I know. Like over a week ago, and I still can't decide if she made the right decision. I'm not going to tell you which decision she makes, and I can't decide if it was the right one or not.
Because I know, in reality, the real Jane Austen, she never married, did she? She
didn't.
Have children.
No.
Right, but she gave the world this incredible gift. And did you know, I learned something a couple of weeks ago. Jane Austen had a sister called Cassandra. Is there a Cassandra in the book?
That was her best friend,
Ah, right. Apparently she was a bit of a...
Sorry, her sister, but her closest companion as well. And neither of them married.
Well, yeah, I still don't know. I mean, her books have changed the world. So I kind of think, and I don't really subscribe to that whole one true love thing. So I kind of think, go back in time and still write the books, because that's going to be your big contribution to the world.
Okay.
Really. Forget about the men.
Men, who needs them?
Fictional men are so much better than the real thing.
That is very, very true. Michelle Parsons has said that she will stay with her one true love.
She's a much nicer person than I am.
Probably. Kathy Drury says she would go back.
Good, Kathy. Kathy and Cassie stick together. I like it.
Oh, and Jodie Gibson also said she would go back.
Yeah.
So interesting. Oh, here we go. David. Hi, David. Nice to see you here. David would stay in the future for love. And that's a gentleman. So there's a romantic gentleman on our list here. So that's lovely.
That's interesting. There's a real 50-50 split.
It is, isn't it? And this is my dilemma. Michelle says, thank you for calling her a nice person.
True.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do. I really don't know.
Well, you've read the book, so you know.
Yeah, but I'm not Jane Austen, and I certainly haven't.
You might be. You might be the Austen of the
anyway. But also knowing, because she knows going back, if she goes back, that she's never going to marry and have children. So I think like that changes whether you would make that decision or not, I think.
Yeah, I think it does. But you know what? Marriage and children, you can have a great life without those things. I think it's, as much as I love my kids and I love my husband and I feel very happy that I have them, I wouldn't want to sort of dismiss the experience of women who don't choose to not marry or choose to not have children, because you can have a wonderfully fulfilling life without those two things. And I don't know enough about Jane Austen to know how she felt about not marrying or not having children, but I'm sure she found huge solace in the books that she wrote, although she wasn't actually that successful in her own lifetime, was she?
No, she wasn't. That was much later that happened. But she was one of those people that really wasn't okay with the social status quo. So, not marrying may have been okay for her.
Yeah.
Helen Edwards would stay for true love.
Wow.
Sharon Hill says love is overrated and
Hi, Sharon.
And Kay Hart's going to stay for love. So yeah, there's a really 50-50 split there amongst the people that are joining us today. So
I feel like there's a PhD or a scientific research project in this.
There you go.
People and their attitudes towards love and relationships. Like, it's actually quite.
All right. Well, we've gone, which doesn't surprise me at all, Cassie, with you and I, that we've gone over our 15 minutes. But that's okay. What is coming up next for you in life, in writing?
Yeah, I'm in the midst of first draft word vomit sort of phase at the moment. So I'm working on my 4th book and just awaiting feedback on the 3rd book that I submitted to my publisher a little while ago. So first draft phase is kind of fun / awful, because it's where you get to be really creative and let your mind go. But I find I'm just constantly second guessing myself, thinking, is this crap? Is this crap? Is this crap? No, just keep writing, just keep writing, just keep writing. So I have good days and bad days.
Okay.
But also, I just want to give one shout out to the book I'm reading at the moment, which is called Her Last Word. It's not coming out until the 7th of July. It's by Kim Kelly, who's a fabulous author, but also a wonderful editor who's helped me with my books. And I was lucky enough to get a preview copy of this, and the cover is just so gorgeous. And it's a really interesting premise. It begins with the death of a young woman who's an aspiring writer, and she's just completed what she thinks will be her first book, and the manuscript is in her backpack, and she's killed on the street. And then the story sort of unfolds about what's happened to the manuscript and what happens to all the people around her. So it's really different. Like, it's a really refreshing, sort of unusual read, not the standard sort of thing you're going to pick up on the shelf. So look out for that one.
Excellent. All right. Michelle has said it's been. What about me? I'm about to dive deep into the editing cave of my 2021 release. So that's where I'm up to at the moment. It needs a bit of work, which I knew.
Which bit do you like most, the first draft or the edit?
Oh, that's a hard question. Probably the edits, because the first draft is always a bit messy and you know it's not that good. Whereas when you're editing, you get the chance to make it what was kind of always in your head from the beginning, but you didn't quite achieve with that first draft. So, yeah, so probably the editing.
Yeah, it's sort of, I used to hate editing, but now actually I sort of prefer that stage because you've got something to work with and you can see that you're shaping and molding it and, you know, working it into, as you say, the vision that you had in your head.
Yeah. All righty. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Cassie. It's been wonderful to have a chat. Coming up over the next couple of weeks, we will have other authors in. We'll have some podcasters, some writing teachers, some editors, that sort of thing. If anyone out there has any suggestions about what they would like to see on 15-Minute Fridays, pop them in the comments and we will see what we can do. Cassie and I are going to log off now and probably get ready nearly for the school run, I guess. So.
Yeah, days are too short.
All right. Thanks, Cassie. See you next time.
Bye, Candy. Have a good week.
See ya.